Traditions. There are a number of traditions that we have, aren't there, in life? Birthday traditions, Easter traditions, and of course, Christmas. Traditions are important. Sometimes they need to be changed because they can become a bit stale after a while if we repeat them, but repeating traditions is a very important part of life. That's what we do at Christmas time. We repeat something that we've done before, and before, and before. I can think, and I'm sure many others can think of Christmases that go way back to your childhood. Way back to your childhood. I can remember not being able to go to sleep on Christmas Eve because I was so excited about what was going to happen on the next day. And eventually I wake up and I'm a part of a tradition of giving gifts, but also a tradition of remembering a story, a very simple story, and yet a story that has been told over and over and over again. Now, of course, we've added to this tradition. We've added to the simple tradition just of the story of Jesus. We've added the gifts that we give, families coming together, the opportunities that we have in which we can celebrate around a table, this year outside, not inside as it's supposed to be. But we could also remember that the last year, which has been a difficult year, so difficult for many people, doesn't need to continue, that our tradition at Christmas reminds us that life can go on into hopefulness, into faith, into love, and into peacefulness. There are many ways in which we can celebrate this tradition that we have at Christmas. In many ways, Christmas is born out of a Christian service, but it permeates all of our culture and our society. There was an article in the Australian newspaper yesterday by Peter Craven that talked about how Christmas is really celebrated in every culture, perhaps not called the same thing, but the sense of sharing, of giving, of kindness, of hopefulness, of all of those virtues and aspects of life that I've mentioned are replicated in the various traditions around the world. I've had some opportunities at times to meet people who are strangers to me at Christmas time. I remember quite a few years ago collecting for the Christmas Bowl appeal. And as I collected from the Christmas Bowl, I'd have various responses from people. They were more open, I think, generally because of the time of year. And sometimes I would begin with the bowl and say to people what it was for. Would you like to give to the Christmas Bowl appeal? And I'd have several reactions. I've already given, someone might say. Or, no thanks. What's it for? Would be someone else. Sorry, don't have any money. Which I always thought was strange when they were walking into a supermarket. But anyway, I'll catch you on the way out. And many people did. Or, certainly, I'd love to. And they put their hand into their pocket and they'd share what they had. These traditions are really what make us a community, make us see each other, not just as strangers, but as people who share a common ideal, a common desire. Of course, we don't always meet those expectations. We know that. We fail at times. But we still hold before us the wonderful tradition of Christmas. We celebrate it in sometimes overly fancy ways, too much tinsel, too much consumerism, too much giving of things that perhaps We have to find places to put them in the house and we don't quite know where they should go. But at the same time, provided we hold on to the very nature of what that tradition is about, we hold on to our community, our society, our capacity to share together. We've had many opportunities this year to be a community, even though we have been in isolation in so many different ways. In many ways, of course, the world itself, having suffered so greatly, has been drawn together as a community, and yet within that community we see the divisions arise. We see the struggle that people have to reach out beyond themselves and to take care, show love and kindness to those around them. And yet we know in our heart of hearts that that is our deepest desire, even if at times it is difficult and we're unable to do it. The birth of Jesus is one of those big stories, a story that can sweep over all of us, not only those of us who are Christians, but can sweep over the world in a very particular and powerful way. We have a cultural expression of that. We in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, struggle a bit with our Northern Hemisphere Christmas with midnight births and snow and so forth. And yet we've adapted. And the fact that there are so many people who have gathered here this morning and in many other churches around Melbourne, around Australia, around the world, really does speak to us of how traditions can develop and grow in community and grow in the soil in which they are planted. Last night we had Australian Christmas carols, and we were able to reflect upon being in this part of the world and continuing to celebrate the very essence of what Christmas is about. Christmas, of course, is always about peace, about love, about hope, and about joy. I love Michael Loonig's cartoons and also his poems, and I've read this before, but let me read it again. Love is born with a dark and troubled face when hope is dead, and in the most unlikely places, love is born, love is always born. We take the stable as a place where love is born, where there is a new way of being in the world. Not a new way that has come from nothing. It has grown through the various traditions, from the Jewish tradition, from other traditions as well, until we arrive at this point and then continue on into our time, the present day, and then beyond the present day into the future. What will next Christmas be like? None of us know. Or the Christmas after that? None of us know. And yet we live in hope that peace, for example, will start to become more of the way in which we are as a community of people together. Sometimes our Christmas carols let us down because they don't speak richly enough to our time, to our present moment. And yet other times they can remind us of that which has gone before us yesterday, that which has shaped us as a people, as a community, and of course, as our relationships develop with friend and stranger. So may we all, this Christmas, experience the realness, the reality of Christmas within our own lives, that we may find from this ancient tradition that which speaks to us in the present day and gives us hope toward tomorrow. It's a gentle story, and yet it's a strong story. It's a story that is repeated over and over again. Of course, The very message of Christmas is not just for one day of the year. It is a message that must work throughout the year. And may we desire that next Christmas we will be more hopeful, more faithful, more peaceful, more gracious, more kind to those people who we meet as strangers on the street. A scene of love and compassion is always something that moves our hearts and our souls and our minds. And that is what Christmas is all about. Amen.